What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review, and this is the last album review of the year 2023, and we figured we'd go out on a really gross and filthy note. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Cryptworm, Oozing Radioactive Vomition. This comes out on the 15th of December on Misako Un Ojo Records. This band formed in the UK in 2014. This is their second full length. I actually went over their first EP, I believe it was their first EP, Reeking Gunk of Abhorrence. I absolutely loved it, not only because it was filthy, gross death metal, but it had the word gunk in it. And I don't think that's used a lot in death metal.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And then I actually did a full-on review of their first full-length, Spewing Mephitic Putridity, which was just gory, goopy, grimy, filthy fun, and that is just kind of the way to describe this band. It's just gory, rotten-sounding death metal. Features current and former members of Cryptic Shift and even a member of Rathadas, which is a really awesome death doom band from Hungary. So yeah, this is not my first experience with this absolutely disgusting band. And well, I mean, John, what did you think?
I don't think this is my first experience with this band. I'm pretty sure I listened to the Reeking Gunk of Abhorrence EP, probably because you showed it to me and you said, look at the album title of this. Right off the bat, the production of this record is probably as gross as the album title, Oozing Radioactive Vomition. Guitars sound slimy, filthy, snarled, and gross, although a very crisp tone, which is something pretty neat.
There's a nice sizzle to their overall guitar tone, but that's backed up by an absolutely swampy, disgusting bass tone, so there's a real nasty thickness to it, like a wet fart through a bullhorn. Like, it's just absolutely gross sounding, and then you add on the absolutely over-the-top vocals on top, which are just low, nasty gurgles. Some of the gurgles go on for like long periods of time, like super sustained gurgles. Like, it kind of reminded me of the whole belching contest for Revenge of the Nerds, where Booger absolutely owned. Yeah, you get booger belches. I guess that's what I'm going to call them.
Kind of like an after the bar night where you're just continuously vomiting. It was kind of like that. But anyway, no. The drums sound very natural, which is really cool because on most records like this, normally you get something that's either overproduced or clicky or triggered, but like everything in this case sounded really natural. The poppy snare really cuts through the guitar mix, which is nice.
A lot of this stylistically reminded me a lot of like more 90s or 90s sounding bands. Like, there's definitely a lot of love for Autopsy on here. I would say Broken Hope, but also like a little bit of like Demolish in terms of like their riff construction, how they like to do those really interesting syncopated crawling riffs across the board where they kind of just like slither through the song, but they're oddly catchy in a way. But I mean, even more modern bands like Undergang, Witch Vomit, even Sanguisugabog to an extent, they all kind of, fit on here in a way just because they all have a gross, thick sound. And they're all like just super heavy, but they're also, I don't know, kind of quirky in a way.
Right off the bat, the title track, Oozing Radioactive Vomition. I keep wanting to say Vomiton. It's not. It's Vomition.
It's like some giant robot that just pukes on people.
Could be.
Vomiton. He's not the hero we need, but he's the hero we have.
One thing that's cool about this band is, while it is riffy as all get out, like there's a lot of constant crawling riffs. Like, it's all over. But a cool thing about it too is it's extremely groovy. Right off the bat, from the very opening note, you're hit with immediate groove.
Actually, groove is just a huge thing on this album across the board. Like, every song in here has fun, kind of like swingy, groovy patterns. And again, with these constantly crawling riffs on here, the drums find a fun way to sort of like accent those. Mm-hmm. And it was just like sort of a fun bounce to like all of these songs, despite the fact that you were being like riffed to death and being puked on in every song. And the crawling riff is sort of the main motif. Like, a lot of death metal bands, like, there's generally like a riff style that they like to use. Like, some of them like to use more thrashy riffs. I mean, look at most of the Florida scene. Lots of bands love going to the tremolo well, which, I mean, the tremolo well is a huge part of death metal. This band likes to kind of crawl and slither. Like, there's definitely tremolo riffs and like big palm-muted chugs on here, but the main thing these guys like to do are these kind of like Demolich style crawling riffs on here, albeit not quite as technical. In a way, the riffs are like flashy, but they're not like flamboyant, and they're not trying to go like too avant-garde or over the top. They kind of just want to make sure you get like the whole sense of groove and just find something to latch onto.
Yeah, it's not very techy. Like, although the riffs are intricate and constantly crawling, there's not a lot of flash to it in the tech sense. Another good example of tremolo riffs, and one of my personal favorites on this album, the song Miasmatic Fetid Odor. Sinister, gross tremolos, and more of a mid-tempo song.
Yeah, it kind of slows down from that, like kind of steady groove, and then, of course, there's a fair amount of blast beats, D beats, kind of thrashy sections. But yeah, this one kind of slithers its way in, and it's a little bit more moody and dark. Like, there's definitely some comparisons to, like, Incantation on here, especially in, like, the descending notes they do with the tremolos. But tremolos are kind of used sparingly on here, which is kind of cool because when they come in, they instantly add a lot of atmosphere. Like, a lot of this, again, is that creepy, crawly riff, or occasionally like just some big heavy chugs. So when the tremolos come in, there's just like a different sort of vibe to the song. You can definitely feel that on Submerged into Vile Repugnance, which is a absolutely disgusting closer that actually shows off another small bit of their sound with some Death Doom breakdowns. The opening of that song sounds like the opening to like 14 different Incantation songs that I love. So naturally, I loved it right away. That song's beginning is all about the atmosphere and sort of just like setting up this whole murky vibe before it inevitably explodes into blast beats, like heavy tremolos, so some great riffy breakdowns. In fact, one of my favorite breakdowns of the entire album is the closing breakdown on that song. But that Death Doom that comes in, again, it's another thing that kind of shifts the mood from just the sort of raucous, punky, sort of dirty sounding death metal. And that Death Doom sound actually appears earlier in the album on Organ Snatcher. There's just a flat out droning Death Doom breakdown there with huge stomping accents on it.
And now, of course, this record isn't without its ooga booga moments. Songs like Necrophagus, Postmortal Devourment, and Engulfed by Gurgling Purge Fluids. Ugh.
I mean, that just sounds like drowning in vomit, but somehow Purge Fluid sounds worse.
Yep. Both of these songs have really mid-tempo moments. In fact, both of these songs, I think, are more predominantly mid-tempo, while there are still some blast beats that are in there kind of as tags on the end of things. Engulfed by Gurgling Purge Fluids reminded me a lot of Sango Sugabog as far as their, like, two-step ooga-booga moments.
Both of those songs in particular have like kind of that hardcore meets death metal vibe. Like there's definitely a lot of punky riffs in there, but Engulfed by Gurgling Purge Fluids, I just like saying that now, even though it's horrible. That song is probably the most different song on here just because it strips down their already very meat and potato sound to just like a slab of uncooked, undisclosed what meat it is, and like a big rotten potato with like bugs in it and shit, because I feel like that's Cryptworm style. It's way more just brutal and primal. Like there's big slam riffs in there, like it gets more palm muted chugs, like they're not doing a lot of their weird crawling riffs. I don't even think there's really like a lot of tremolo in there. It's more like down-picked punk riffs. And like when the punky section comes in, like it kind of feels like you're just getting into like a hardcore section in a Napalm Death song. And Necrophagus Postmortal Devourment, which, I mean, that just means you're eating something that's dead. So like that's eating anything you've cooked that's meat, I guess. Or
That's
even,
true.
I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that one's notably, again, like more groove-laden, slower. It has like a more brutal edge to it overall. Because a lot of this, I feel like, it's kind of that gross out sort of like autopsy kind of rotten sound where the shifts are just really sharp and, it's very punky and just kind of grimy sounding. But those two songs in particular sound just more brutal, like they're taking more pages from like Cannibal Corpse and such and kind of working into their overall sound. But they close on pretty much what I would say I think is like one of the best tracks in the album, Submerged into Vile Repugnance, which again I think showcases a lot of cool dynamics in terms of how they shift from style to style. Like you have their more brutal section towards the end with a riffy breakdown. That long, slow Death Doom buildup is absolutely awesome, and the middle part is just straight up old school 90s death metal. What's not to love? And to answer that question, I mean, there are a couple things that I did take issue with this, namely It was something I noticed right away from the last album, where I think the songs are a bit longer on here versus the last album. And I do think they kind of drag a little bit, especially on Necrophagus, Organ Snatcher, and Engulfed by Gurgling Purge Fluids. I think these songs are good, but they hang out a little too long. Like, they kind of get caught in a jam session where, you know, they're not necessarily sure, like, all right, how do we end this? Like, where are we going to go from here? Let's just keep hammering on this riff. I mean, I like hearing bands hammer on a good riff, and there are a ton of awesome riffs on here. But I think they hang on to them too long, and it isn't as though, like, the songs really warrant, like, a 6-minute time length. Like, I would say like 3.5 to 4 minutes would be about perfect, because they would capture all the riffs. You'd get, you know, kind of the whole vibe of it, and it would kind of condense it. And you know, that's kind of old school death metal anyway. Like, something that is more meat and potatoes, you don't necessarily want it to hang out long, because there aren't a lot of like moving parts in here. Like, generally these songs end up kind of bookending and going back to the same riffs, and while they're good, you know, you kind of get this whole like, can we get onto it? Like, you know, this is good and all, but like, I feel like I heard this before, and that was like earlier in the song.
Yeah, I don't know if I can knock it for the lengthy songs, because they're very entertaining. You don't stop moving your head. Like,
no.
It's impossible to do. With the amount of groove that's packed into everything, they're still entertaining, but I guess for me in the lengthy songs is maybe do more with them and stop revisiting riffs. Like, if you've got this extra time to do something, maybe throw in more tracks instead of revisiting a riff over again, or maybe incorporate another breakdown, because while there are breakdowns in here, sometimes the songs end just on the last riff that they played, and sometimes it's like a D beat that it ends on, or whatever, because you have all this building going on with these riffs, and you think there'd be more to them, but sometimes there's not.
And I will say that while I like all the, you know, again, creepy, crawly riffs that are on here, I think that like particular style kind of gets overused. Like, when you get down to Engulfed by Gurgling Purge Fluids, God, I feel like I have to say that way too many times. You know, that change in style there is kind of a welcome break, and they even do incorporate, again, the fun, creepy, crawly riffs. I don't necessarily know what to call them, because I'm not a guitarist, but that's what I'm sticking with. But it's kind of refreshing at that point, because you haven't heard them for a little while. And hearing some different riff styles in here, I think would kind of open this up a little bit. But honestly, outside of that, I really don't have any complaints. I mean, one observation I can make is that they made their logo more legible, which, oh my God, you fucking posers. I can't believe you did that. It is supposed to be illegible. It's supposed to look like it's dripping with snot, and now I can make out letters. I'm upset. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, like, overall, this is just a fun listen. Like, this is just awesome, old school, riffy death metal. It's gross and snotty and filthy, and you feel like you need to like wash your hands and your entire body after listening to it. Like, that's a good sign of like some gross out death metal. So overall, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. This was a really enjoyable listen. It's rotten and filthy throughout. If you love riffy death metal, this album is just packed with riffs. So great death doom moments on here to kind of break it up. And you know, while they do overuse certain tropes, they're good tropes, so I can't really fault them. Every song in here definitely had me moving. Like, again, very groove laden. Like, you're gonna bang your head to this. And again, the delightfully over-the-top vocals, I think, kind of just sets the ultra swampy, disgusting mood on here. If you're a big fan of Autopsy, Incantation, Witch Vomit, Sanguisugabog, and definitely some Demilich too. Like, if you want to hear Demilich kind of just like a little bit less techie and weird, and by weird I mean like lyrically, this band could never be as weird as Demilich, because no band is as weird as Demilich lyrically.
And there's no vocalist on the face of the planet that delivers quite like the vocalist of Demilich.
Oh no, believe me, these guys try.
They try, but I mean, yeah. You're not getting a full puked bullfrog. It's just not happening.
It's close.
Yep.
Like puked a toad. But yeah, check this out. Fun listen.
It's a solid 3.5 for me as well. This record is very entertaining. They waste no time whatsoever. It's riffy as all get out. Tons and tons and tons of groove. Bunch of creepy crawly riffs, and yes, well, it might drag on a little bit too long. It's still wonderfully entertaining. You're not gonna stop banging your head. I never stopped. Tons of just disgusting sounding riffs and puked, gurgled vocals and death doom and chug and not a lot of lead work. I don't think there was any lead work.
Yeah, actually, I didn't even think. I was so entertained by the riffs, I didn't even give a shit if there was lead work.
I just now noticed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no lead work, but straightforward, awesome, old school death metal. Once again, if you're a fan of Phobophilic, Autopsy, Undergang, Incantation, Demolish, a little bit of Mutilatred, Sanguishugabog, all these things, you're probably really gonna dig this. Again, very entertaining. I would recommend checking it out.
It's death metal, the kind you clean up with a mop and bucket.
And next time I go out on a date, I'm going to mention that we have post-mortal devourment. Get a hamburger. It's dead. I'm going to devour it.
It's going to be a short date.
It is.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below, thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel. But thrallsmetal.com is where you go to get Thralls Metal stuff. We have new shirts. We have older shirts that are at a discounted price right now. And we even have hats. So if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
Last but not least, still tons of stuff going on at Thralls of Metal, although this is our last review for the year. What an intense, crazy year it's been. We have done so much, from throwing our own metal festival to booking our own shows, having some friends come out and play. We made a ton of new friends, ton of new subscribers. You guys, thank you so much for an awesome fucking year here at Thralls of Metal. Of course, we still have our end of year lists coming, probably pretty soon in the new year, our Black Dahlia Murder ranking. Also, this upcoming Monday is going to be Necrotic Nick's birthday. Make sure you wish him a happy birthday on Monday, the 18th of December. He's going to be 167. But really, you guys, thank you so much. We genuinely appreciate you. It's been a blast this year on Thralls of Metal. We can't wait for 2024. Nick, say something to the people.
I can wait a little bit longer for 2024, but, you know, it's been an awesome year. You guys absolutely rule. Again, tons of stuff coming your way. Year-end lists will probably start popping up after this video, so get ready for those. And, yeah, one more big thank you because you guys rule, and we will catch you later.